Welcome to Vsb News Online for Friday, February 13th. I'm Charles Webb. Premier Michael Dunkley today acknowledged the challenges the unemployed are facing during these tough times. On this, the first day of Parliament, he called upon the opposition to move away from petty partisan politics, get on board, and start moving Bermuda forward.
I know as Premier there are many people that are struggling. There are many people that are unemployed or underemployed. Many people have very serious challenges we're trying to deal with. But what I try to do as Premier of Bermuda is I try to keep a sense of calm no matter what's going on. I always learned growing up that you can never be too big or too small, because you always come back to where you need to be. And in these tough times where people have very special challenges they have to deal with, their patience, their understanding might not be what it should be, and I understand that. And I think against the backdrop, you have an opposition who's always trying to get their point across. Sometimes I think they make some valid points. Other times I think it's petty partisan politics. That's unfortunate. People have a job to do. We've got to get out there and do the job in the most appropriate way. Personal attacks or being overly critical about people is certainly not acceptable. It's got to be about policies and how we want to move forward. Prime example, when I gave a ministerial statement today about the trip to Washington, D.C. We were up there for 2 days, and we had 12 meetings. Very, very busy schedule for both those days. Opportunity to go to prayer breakfast as well. Opposition member stands up and says that the government consultant in Washington, which was under this government and the former government as well, has been around for some time, got a great deal of experience in those affairs, was paid $400,000 last year. It's absolute nonsense. Because while I'm aware of the contract, and the contract calls for a $100,000 retainer, and if you go over the hours that are stipulated, then you're paid by an hour. So I asked the Ministry of Finance to give me a report on payments over the last 5 or 6 years. The spend for this financial year is just over $200,000, with only 2 months left. Nowhere under the current government has it been close to $400,000, but I do note under the PLP it was very close to it twice. So he who speaks it must have actually felt it, and I think that type of politics is petty, and it's not acceptable, because when you want to trash somebody's reputation who you were very comfortable having them give you the advice, it's unacceptable, and I certainly won't stand for that type of thing.
There's growing concern that the message that is being sent with regards to the America's Cup is not a positive one. This from Economic Development Minister Dr. Grant Gibbons, who said a successful America's Cup is good for all Bermudians. During a break in the proceedings in the House of Assembly, the minister also vowed to get out and spread the word about the benefits we can all derive from this major event.
One of the reasons that Bermuda was sort of considered as a jurisdiction was the need to have the community completely in full support of it. And obviously we saw in December after the announcement huge community support and enthusiasm for it. But unfortunately, I think certainly a number of members of the opposition have started to pick at this, and I think it's sending a terrible message not only to the America's Cup people, but certainly to the broader world as well. I mean, we should be celebrating the fact that we have this event coming. It's going to have huge economic impact. Essentially the benefits will be spread very broadly throughout the community, both small business, large business, across a lot of different sectors. And rather than turning this into a political thing, we should be looking for ways in which we can get behind it and support it. I think that's going to be in the best interest of Bermuda, because we're really on stage now with this, and I think people may not appreciate the amount of work and effort that went into getting this, and to simply use it as something which is political point scoring or whatever else, I think is really unfortunate and detrimental to the whole island.
How would you go about getting the average Bermudian to understand the value of the America's Cup to this entire island?
Well, I'm probably guilty for not getting out there on a more regular basis. The fact of the matter is this has been a very involved process up to this point, and there hasn't been a lot of time. We've just set up the ACBDA. We're working very hard to get the site up at Dockyard ready. all that involves a lot of planning, applications, things of that sort. So we've been, as it were, preoccupied with some of that, but I'm going to make a personal commitment to get out there. I've already got a number of speaking engagements. I think we've got a great board with the ACBDA. I'm sure that some of them will be out there as well to try and sort of get across what I would say are extremely broad benefits here to Bermuda.
Have you given any thought to the suggestion of, say, having somebody like a member of the union on the board?
Well, I think what we are, it's a good question. What we have actually already said is we're going to set up advisory groups to advise the ACBDA and certainly the minister as well. We had a meeting the other day with Russell Coots and a number of the local boating clubs because we'd like their input. There is a tremendous program that the America's Cup will put on in terms of getting out with sailing into the community, into the local boating clubs, into the schools as well with STEM, which is the science, technology, engineering, and math program, talking about the sailing. So I think all of that's coming. The problem with Bermuda is everybody wants it to happen immediately. And as I said, we've been quite preoccupied and quite busy just to get these things moving because we don't have a lot of time between getting these things set up and getting along. But we'll get out there with that information.
Transport Minister Sean Crockett and a team of aviation experts have returned from London where they've been explaining to the British aviation regulators what everyone will get out of the proposed mid-Atlantic hub operated by the Bermuda government. Mr. Crockett, who said the project would cost $30 to $40 million over 10 years, but earn $10 million a year in fees, was able to report that the British had given the plan their seal of approval.
The primary goal is to assist and support the Department of Airport Operations in its effort to modernize airspace and enhance air traffic services for Bermuda. And the initial focus of this effort is concentrated on the proposed establishment of an ATC facility with required communication, navigation, and surveillance located at the airport premises. This facility will have responsibility for instrument flight rules, terminal operations, as well as a planned expansion of existing responsibilities for ATM services and facility maintenance. This expanded ATC facility and the associated airspace requirements will be called the Bermuda Terminal Control Area and will include the responsibility for approach control service to be transferred from the New York to Bermuda. So right now, the FAA in New York, they do all of our air service. That will be transferred to Bermuda.
Would that also include this Class A service, which is what they call center control, which deals with en route flights, for instance, going from point A to point B?
Minister? That is part of the long term, but this is in 3 phases. So the initial phase would be just controlling our, I think, 50-mile radius. Long-term plan is potentially to control from point A to point B.
Could there be any truth in a prophet being without honor in his own land? Well, Graham Moll seems to think so. In this final part of our 2-part interview, the veteran musician and member of the Bermuda Arts Council says some Bermudian musicians are setting their sights on farther horizons.
We are taking trips to places like Havana for the Havana Jazz Festival. I can mention this because I was a member of a band that performed in the Havana Jazz Festival. We are doing projects where you have people who are getting contracts. If people don't know the name Collie Buddz, they've obviously been living under a rock. Right? So there are these opportunities. We have some world-class entertainers right here. I hate to say it, we're seeing less of them because the economics of the situation for the entertainers is not getting better, and people are leaving and going to other countries where there are more financial incentives for them to perform.
Now, are you suggesting that government should be doing something about this?
Well, I will state, like yourself, I'm someone who worked in tourism not in the government side, but I really feel strongly that we need to have a new approach to how we bring people who have a knowledge of the arts and our culture and spearhead efforts to revitalize tourism in Bermuda. There are so many great people in our community who are not being utilized to their full potential. And whether it's musicians, whether it's people like, I look at Ruth Thomas and I say, this is a gem. Ruth has given so much to Bermuda. We need to find ways of exploring that rich culture and of using that in a positive way for the island.
Now, one minister suggested that even from a point of view of a festival, that we should, as Bermudians, establish our own festival. How do you feel about that?
I am biased. I performed in the music festival years ago. If you have musicians in Bermuda who are good enough to play in the Quincy Jones Orchestra, you have Bermudians who are good enough to perform anywhere on the world stage. Doing our own festival, I wouldn't say no, but I would say there's nothing wrong with us benefiting local musicians while putting them on the stage with international acts, because we have that quality here.
And we'll be back with more news right after this.
In an effort to make Bermuda's roads safer, and in partnership with Bermuda Police Service and the Bermuda Road Safety Council, Defense Broadcasting is launching a safe driving campaign. Complete with thumb bands, come into Defense Broadcasting and 94 Reed Street and make the commitment to drive safer and slower for yourself. Your voice could be featured on the radio. Get yourself a thumb band as a reminder of your commitment to drive safer and with fewer distractions. While you're at it, why not get one for someone in your life who also needs a reminder that our roads do not discriminate. They can take anyone's life. Let's drive safe, Bermuda, and arrive alive. Peace and love. Safe journeys.
It took questions from the opposition in Parliament today to elicit the fact that the Bermuda Price Control Commission, appointed in the spring of 2013, has never met. But Finance Minister Bob Bridges did not appear too worried about the admission.
Could the Honourable Minister tell us his or the OBA government's position on the work of the Price Control Commission and the whole idea of price controls? Are you in favor of the work of the Price Control Commission, in other words?
Minister. That is a very general and even philosophical question, which I will try to say that, you know, we believe in free markets on this side of the house, and but at the same time, the Price Control Commission has been there for many years, and there are issues in Bermuda as relates to cost of things because free markets haven't worked, or there's a view that free markets haven't worked. For instance, with the cost of electricity, there's no free market because there's a monopoly. So I think from my own point of view, the Price Control Commission is something that really needs to be reviewed, but we've kept it there. But most importantly, we have addressed any issues of pricing or mispricing, should I say, particularly as it relates to groceries and energy.
Shadow Workforce Development Minister Ralph Commission decried what he sees as an unacceptable level of disparity in the island's unemployment figures, and that the number of blacks on the unemployment roll greatly outnumber those of whites.
Well, it's no secret that unemployment just over the last year has increased significantly. We had a report that came out that said there were additional just over 500 persons who have been added to the unemployment rolls. Unemployment is up to 9%, which may be an historic high for Bermuda, I believe. So we've seen, with respect to the minister's answering of the question I posed as to what has been the increase of clients to the financial assistance department, it's been about 160 odd persons who have been added to the financial assistance rolls, largely because of this economy and the economic conditions. The other thing that was significant, I asked her about the racial and gender demographic of the client base over the past year, and what is significant is about the egregious and gross racial disparity that exists. At least about 2,021 of the clients are black Bermudians, as opposed to about 100 and if I just could refer to my notes, 157 whites. To me, that's an unacceptable disparity. Now, it was unfortunate that the minister, in my asking her about the disparity, chose to pose the question, well, should we try to get more whites on? Some of the members laughed, of course, but it was very disingenuous on her. The real question should be, how can we reduce the total numbers of financial assistants who rely on financial assistance, and more particularly, how can we close that gap by seeing less black Bermudians having to resort to financial assistance?
Well, let me ask you, how would you close the entire gap of financial assistance?
Well, I think to close the gap, you're largely talking about how do we increase the opportunities and economic viability of many of the black communities in the country and black persons in the country is getting the type of economic opportunities that they're going to need so that they're not going to be able to rely on financial assistance. We see a major disparity also in terms of the unemployment levels. Even though unemployment was at 9% nationally, black unemployment is at 12%. The historic high, and white unemployment is at 4% by way of the latest labor force survey. And Charles, as you know with your experience, if you have an unemployment rate below 5%, most economists worldwide would consider that full employment. And so with a white unemployment rate of 4%, that means that there's virtually no unemployment within Bermuda's white community, as opposed to 12% in the black community. So the economic conditions that we're facing right now, which is a national concern, is obviously having a greater disproportionate impact upon communities of color in Bermuda.
Yes, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and there's definitely love in the air as Bermudians go about shopping for these soft and pretty sentiments of love called flowers. Armed with her camera, Adrian Smet sat up outside a flower shop on Front Street and gathered these rather touching sentiments.
This has become an annual tradition. I come to this store, I get roses, I take them home and I present them. But this is really just Act 1 in a whole weekend of activities that I have planned.
So what, might I ask, is Act 2?
Well, that's private.
Well, my wife is receiving 2 stems of Phalaenopsis, which she loves orchids, white orchids. I used my brain for a change and pre-ordered, so all I had to do was come in here and pick them up and avoid the crowd that's in there. So I'm quite pleased with this. I think she'll be happy.
And you know you'll get a good reaction from her.
Happy wife, happy life, my friend.
My wife always talks about going to Amsterdam, and Amsterdam's really known for tulips, and I know that's her favorite flower, so figured I might as well bring a little bit of Amsterdam to her while we can't get there until then.
Okay, just carnations, nothing too serious. I got some for my mom, my granny, and my auntie. That's pretty much it. Nothing too serious.
I just got a big bird. I wanted to get a life-size one, but they don't have any, so I got a little one and some chocolates.
But that's a pretty big beer.
Yeah. Bigger the better.
Doing a lot of hand ties as opposed to the vases, because a lot of the individuals, their wives or girlfriends, etc., they already have them. So we're doing a lot of the hand ties, which are beautiful in the cellophane and they stand. But what's very popular in terms of, it's interesting that they still are holding true to the tradition of the red roses, but we do have the multicolor ones, which are very beautiful. And you do get some of the individuals that will kind of step outside of the old tradition and do the colorful ones.
Even in politics, the arrow of Cupid has a way of getting into your heart, and no one expressed this more romantically than the Premier, Michael Dunkley.
I thought about that. How will I spread love? Well, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. I've been married for over 30 years. And as I reflect on Valentine's Day and the very special relationship that I cherish with my wife, I can spread love by saying that my wife always had a couple of key words when she grew up, when we raised our children. And she always told our children, no matter what happens, show respect and kindness. And she preached that incessantly over and over and over again. So I will follow my wife on Valentine's Day, that respect and kindness, and there'll be more love.
So will you pass this on to your children in the chamber?
Well, I can't claim everybody in that chamber, but we're all God's children, and yes, we try to be. We talked, our colleagues on the government side, we've talked about making sure we follow proper procedure and protocol in the house, even when things get low heated. And we'll do that.
And from romance, we turn to Earl Baisden, all the way from Las Vegas, with today's sports report.
It was a tough day in Las Vegas for 3 young Bermuda rugby teams as the Las Vegas International Invitational Sevens rugby tournament got underway yesterday. The Bermuda High School development team ended the day winless, while the other Bermuda High School team, the Buccaneers, finished with a record of 2 wins and 1 loss. The university team ended the day with 1 win and 2 losses. Keith Hotchkiss, the tour organizer and manager, summed up the day this way. Last night at the Somerset Cricket Club, it was a Premier Division matchup between the Somerset Trojans and PHC Zebras that ended scoreless, with both teams sharing a point. Meanwhile, at the Devonshire Recreation Club, another Premier Division match took place. Antoine Russell gave Robin Hood the lead in the 6th minute over the Devonshire Cougars, and Tavon Terrell doubled that lead 1 minute before half-time as Robin Hood took the 2-0 lead into the break. And with no goals in the second half, it made the final score Robin Hood 2, Devonshire Cougars 0. In a First Division matchup at the Devonshire Recreation Club, Wolves went ahead in the 4th minute when Torrey Davis scored. Jerizino Simmons equalized for Young Man Social Club when he found the back of the net in the 65th minute. However, in the 73rd minute, Sergio Richardson converted from the penalty spot as Wolves earned a hard-fought 2-1 victory over Young Man Social Club. Trey Simons and his Northern Iowa Athletic Community College men's track and field teammates competed at the Grindley Invitational. Simons ran a North Iowa Athletic Community College 2015 men's indoor season best time while finishing second in the men's 800 meters, clocking a time of 1:56.57. Simons' time sees him meet the NJCAA Indoor National Qualifying Standard. Lisa Blackburn began taking part in the 2015 Arena Pro Series in Orlando. Blackburn competed in the women's 100 long course meter breaststroke. During the preliminaries, Blackburn clocked the 14th fastest time of 1:12.86 to advance to the B final. During the B final, Blackburn finished 8th, touching the wall in a time of 1:13.86. Davidson's College men's tennis team swept the 3 double matches en route to a 5-2 victory over Neil Tolson and his Wingate University men's tennis teammates. Senior Tolson went 3 sets in the number 2 singles spot, falling to Artman Karpoko 1-6, 6-4, 6-4. Tolson then teamed up with Sebastian Hall in the number 1 doubles position, and they went down 6-3 to J.B. Groff and Jordan Hart. The Smash Table Tennis Commercial League season resumed inside the Smash Table Tennis facility last evening, with the league reaching the halfway point as Week 10 of the season was completed. The Ball Breakers defeated Smash and Bowls 5-2. The Itsy Bitsy Masters defeated the Smooth Bowl Strokers 5-2. Smash and Dash defeated Dynamite 5-1, while the Happy Valley Dental defeated TBA 5-3, and Security Associates defeated I Thought It Was Beer Pong 5-4. The Bermuda Squash Racket Association Club's As We Go Team League concluded at the Squash Club in Devonshire last evening. With 11 points, Raw Talent won the Diamond League division, while the Platinum League saw 2 teams finish with 10 points, but Too Mad was declared the winners as they had earlier defeated Length Matters 2-1. The Girl League title went to Stroke This with 9 points, and the Love Handles won the Silver League with 11 points. On day 1 of the 2014 Rocky Mountain Division Mongol competition, John LaShaw completed the course in a time of 51.50, which saw him finish 31st, while Matthew LaJour finished 63rd as he did not finish the course. Thank you for joining. I'm Earl Baisden, reporting from Las Vegas for VSB Sports.
Looking at the weather for Saturday, February the 14th, there will be sunny breaks, developing showers overnight. Winds will be west, northwesterly, moderate, easing southwesterly, light to moderate by evening, increasing moderate to strong overnight. We are expecting a high of near 63 and a low near 57. This weather forecast is the courtesy of the Bermuda Weather Service. Thanks for watching VSB News Online for Friday, February the 13th. I'm Charles Webb, wishing you a very happy Valentine's.